Welcome in, everybody, to a preview segment of the Wise Men Say podcast. Ty Fisher alongside Colin with Keeping Tabs, the Houston Dynamo podcast. Colin, how are you, man?
Hey, doing pretty good tonight. It's always a good night to talk some Dynamo, talk some crew. That's what we're here for.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Tell us really quick a little bit about how you got started with Keeping Tabs and what Keeping Tabs is about.
Well, me and my best friend, which is my co-host, his name is Luke, and we started the podcast. We actually lived in the dorms together in college, and he is originally my best friend's little brother, and because of that, we became best friends also, me and Luke. And so we were roommates in college, and we just I've been a fan of the Dynamo since 2016, 2015-ish, and we were roommates around COVID year, so 2020, and we had the idea just to start a podcast because I got him in the Dynamo, and around that time, Tab Ramos was actually the coach, so that's where Keeping Tabs came from, is Tab Ramos, which is such a random coach. I mean, only lasted like 2 years and had one of the worst 10 years as a head coach, but
Oh, yeah.
that's where it came from. And it's funny because Luke, who's the co-host and my best friend, is his name in my phone as his contact is still Tab Ramos. I don't know why. I just thought it'd be funny if I put his name as Tab Ramos. So I don't even think about it anymore. I remember I changed it to Luke a while ago because I was like, why is it Tab Ramos still? And then I didn't even recognize it whenever he would call. So I changed it back to Tab Ramos. But yeah, man.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a cool little backstory. And we don't really care that Tab Ramos was bad and that his tenure didn't last. We still claim that. We still claim it. And yeah. And ever since then, we watch almost every game of the Dynamo together. We haven't been able to go to a game in a while, but we definitely want to go back. But yeah, that's where Keeping Tabs came from.
Nice. So obviously Houston Dynamo, Columbus Crew this Saturday, 2:30 p.m., 1:30 p.m. Central on Apple TV, MLS Season Pass. First of all, the Houston Dynamo recently lost against Inter Miami. Obviously, no Messi. The whole complimentary ticket thing was, I guess, damage control, you could say. But after that match, I believe the score was a 3-1, the final score?
4-1. It was 4-1.
4-1, sorry. What lesson do you think was learned from that match by the Dynamo? And how do you think they will fare against a Columbus side who recently lost midweek in the Champions Cup match 3-0 to LAFC?
Well, I want to preface by saying that I've seen a lot of negative comments, and I don't know if you know who Tactical Manager is on Twitter. Yeah, he was one of the main attackers of the Dynamo, sending that message, that tweet that, hey, Messi isn't coming, so we'll give some complimentary tickets out. First of all, I think that's a great PR move. And I know that no Premier League team, no La Liga team, no Bundesliga team, no real league would do, or, real league would do that. But, I think that was actually a great move because, first of all, we're not even going to get. I mean, that was the biggest sellout that we're going to have this year for the Dynamo. We're not going to get close to that big of a crowd ever. Maybe in playoffs, maybe. So I think with a lot of new fans and a lot of casuals coming, I think that's a great idea, personally. And yes, I do see what kind of vibe it is. I do see that, but I still think it's a good move considering the amount of casuals that would have came, and that maybe got disappointed that Messi didn't come, especially disappointed with the 4-1 loss. Now, what lesson did I learn? I mean, the lesson I learned is that you can't let go of Hector Herrera and Coco Carrasquilla and sign Jack McGlynn as your best, off-season addition and then expect to be good. And this really frustrates me because Pat Onstad, our general manager, which he was with the Columbus Crew, so you should know very fondly. He did good. I mean, he won y'all a 2020 MLS Cup, so I mean, he did very good for y'all.
Yep, he did. But then again, obviously we had an old roster. We had Jonathan Mensah, Aloy Room.
He brought in Zella Rayon, did he not?
Yeah, Lucas. Yep, he did bring in Zella Rayon. yeah, Pat Onstead, we know very fondly. Good memories. But it was kind of heartbroken a
Yeah.
little bit when he went to Houston, I can't lie.
Yeah. And you also know Mendelson. What's his name? What's his first name? I'm drawing a blank. He was also from the Columbus. He's our sporting director right now. Mendelson. I can't remember his first name. Anyways, he's from the Crew also. And regardless of that, so yeah, Pat Onstad, he does great, right? We go 7 years without making the playoffs, 7 or 8 years consecutively not making the playoffs, and in 2023 we miraculously, bring in Hector Herrera, do all this. We won the Open Cup, we make the playoffs, and then we didn't make any offseason additions, right? Hector Herrera gets injured in 2024. We didn't make any additions, so now we're worse than we were in 2023, and then now we let go of our best players, Mikael, Coco Carrasquilla, Hector Herrera. We didn't sign anybody of note except for Jack McGlynn, who, okay, yeah, he's a good up-and-coming player, but he's expected to, fill in the shoes of Hector Herrera, probably the greatest Mexican player to ever live. I mean, maybe that's debatable, but he's definitely one of the best Mexican. He's probably the best Mexican midfielder ever. Maybe.
Okay. All right.
Objectively. I mean, play for Porto.
Yeah.
I'm biased.
I get it. I get it. Nah, hey, as you should be. I mean, I'm biased when it comes to Columbus on any other podcast as well. So as you should be. Kind of switching gears real quick, but staying on Jack McGlynn, surprise addition to the Dynamo that the Union let him go. What did Olsen see in him, and how has he fared so far with Houston?
I've thought Jack McGlynn's done really poor, if I'm being honest. There's many. I think he's done really poor. I mean, he was a main contributor to giving up a very, very poor goal, the first goal that Inter Miami scored. Yeah, it was a bad pass, but you expect a player of, a $2 million caliber to be able to get out of that position. I mean, yeah, he's not in a great position, but you can easily see a scenario where he gets the ball out, passes it wide or passes it back to the keeper. And I personally think he's been very poor with the Dynamo. I mean, he hasn't got any goals or assists. I mean, granted, we've only scored 2 goals since the season started, but he hasn't helped with that. I mean, and coming off 2024, where the Dynamo, yeah, defensively we were really good, but offensively we were one of the worst teams in the league when it comes to scoring goals, creating chances, and Jack McGlynn's not helping out with that. He's, being asked to fill in Hector Herrera's shoes, who, I don't think he's anywhere close to where Hector Herrera was. I mean, Jack McGlynn, he has a lot of potential. Recently got his first cap with the U.S. men's national team, scored a banger against Venezuela like a few months ago. But in terms of being the guy for the Dynamo, like, I don't think he is. He hasn't shown me these first 2 games at least.
Okay. Switching back to the matchup itself. The last time the Houston Dynamo beat Columbus in MLS play was 2023. Since then, the Crew have defeated the Dynamo in the Champions Cup and have made Lower.com Field a relatively big fortress. What can we expect from Ben Olsen heading into this matchup? Will he maybe tweak some things that didn't go right in the Miami match that will go right in the Columbus match? Or are we going to see the same kind of formation, tactic style against Miami?
So we have played 2 consecutive years. So in 2023, we played the Columbus. And I don't know if you remember, y'all came to Houston and we scored like a last minute goal. I think it was either 2-1 or 2-0. I can't remember.
2-0.
Yeah. And that was whenever y'all were fit. Y'all were like one of the best teams in the league, probably the best team in the league. Y'all were like about to, win the supporter shield type stuff. And, we got the best of y'all there. Then in 2024, then the Champions Cup, which you mentioned, I can't remember the first. I know y'all came to us first, and then we give up a last second goal. It was like a last second goal, and then I think we tied 1-1 against y'all. Yeah, in the second leg, but y'all won away goals. I think we have a pretty good history, especially like I feel like we've shared a good amount of players, especially Steve Clark. I mean, I'm sure you have fond memories of Steve Clark.
He yelled at me one time.
What? What?
Steve Clark yelled at me one time.
He seems like the type of guy to do that. What happened?
I think it was 2016. We were in a funk, right? We were losing like 4 or 5 games in a row. We had just lost to Colorado, and everybody's booing and whatnot. And I'm like, Steve, I still believe. And he comes over, he's like, you need to tell everybody to get their asses here and still support this team. Da, 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 da. I'm like, all I'm saying, I still believe in you guys. He's like, you need to get here and you need to support this team like everybody else should. Da, 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 da. I'm like, bro, I'm just saying, I still support you guys. Like, relax, dude. And then he walked away and then he came back and yelled at me again. And I'm like, bro, I'm just saying, I still support the guys. Like, crap.
That's wild. But you know what? I don't even put that past Steve Clark. Like, I believe everything you just said. Like, Steve Clark has that dog in him to do that. Like, he has that dog in him to do that.
Yeah.
But what? Who else have we shared? We've definitely shared more than who?
Artur.
Oh, of course. What am I thinking?
Yeah. And Andrew Tarbell.
Really? I did not know he played for Columbus.
Andrew Tarbell was the backup keeper in 2020.
I did not know that. Okay, but Artur is class. I will say he's one of the best
100%.
defensive midfielders.
100%.
And back to your question, I mean, Artur is one of the most important players to our system. The system which we like to keep the ball. We like to keep possession. We don't create a lot with the possession, but we will keep the ball. In 2024, we were second in possession, only to one team in the league, and that was Columbus Crew. Yep. Y'all were the only team better than us in possession. So we are two teams that like to keep the ball, like to pass around, and I think we'll see a lot of that. Playing in Columbus, though, a lot has happened with this team. A lot of turnover has happened with this team. So I'm not sure how we're going to look. I know we're going to try to keep the ball, but playing away, playing with the morale that we have, I'm not sure if we're gonna see that possession style football that we like to play. And Ben Olsen, and to answer your question, he's a very stubborn manager. I don't think he's gonna change a lot of the lineup. I think he's still gonna start the same 11 that we've seen in the first 3 games. I would bet my life on it, and it would not surprise me if we see us try to play the same way.
Understandable. I have noticed that quite often that Houston is kind of stubborn with the ball a little bit. I think that's how, I can't remember who it was, but that's how another team was last year. I think it was not St. Louis, because we didn't play St. Louis. There was another team last year that was very stubborn with the ball and kind of really leveled out the possession field with Columbus, because normally Columbus will have about 60 to 70% possession of the ball, and the other team will have about between 20 and 30. But last year there was one that was like 49-51, and we drew, I think, 0-0. Can't remember who it was, but we were just like, we could not keep the ball to save our lives. But is that how Ben Olsen normally is? Does he want the ball, or does he like just kind of dictate play a little bit during certain moments of the game?
Well, we've never seen a Ben Olsen, Hector Herrera-less. Since his time coming to the Dynamo, he's always had a Hector Herrera up his sleeve, which is a master possession in MLS. So, I mean, in the first 2 games, I'm not sure on the exact stat, but we did not dominate possession, at least from the eye standpoint. So we did not pass the eye test in that regard. But Ben Olsen does like to keep the ball. He likes to play more conservative. And one thing that really, irks me about the way that Ben Olsen plays is that he looks for defensive qualities in his attacking players. So that being said, our wingers act more as fullbacks, and our fullbacks act more as wingers. But they, in possession, that it's really weird. It's really hard to explain. But a good example of that is Ibrahim Aliou, who is our U22 winger, and he's trash. By all means, he's garbage. But he is a starter in and out because he defends well for a winger. For whatever that's worth, for whatever that's worth, he defends well for a winger. And something that really makes me upset is that he got the most goals for our team last year in 2024, yet he scored 6 goals. So how surprising is that a team made the playoffs with the player that started every single game and he scored 6 goals, having the most goals on the team? It doesn't make sense. And it's not like goals were spread around. We just had one of the worst, records in goals scoring around the league. And that man is Ben Olsen's right-hand man. Like, I don't know what is wrong. I don't know why Ben Olsen loves Ibrahim Aliu, but he will defend that man until the day he dies. And he's so terrible. But back on the point is that he's good on defense for a winger. So Ben Olsen likes to play a conservative style where we play good defense. And to his credit, we had one of the best defenses in the league last year. We really did. But, we lost Mikael, who was one of the better center backs in MLS. We sold him to Palmeiras in Serie A for like 5 or 6 million, which is a good haul for a center back, to be fair. And Sviatchenko, who's normally our starting center back, is out injured. So with our 2 center backs out, we haven't had a great defense. But Ben Olsen will try to keep the ball, but away from home, playing a good team, I'm not sure. I really don't know. I think he'll still try to keep the ball, but I don't think it'll work in his favor.
Mm-hmm. How has the life without Coco Carrasquilla and Hector Herrera been? Is it just like us here in Columbus without Cucho and Christian Ramirez? Like we're down bad.
I mean, you can't really compare a player to Cucho, to be fair. Cucho,
touche, yeah, fair.
Cucho is one of a kind. I mean, he was probably the best striker in MLS. So, I mean, that is a loss that no team could feel harder than the Columbus. But in a way, Hector Herrera and Coco Carrasquilla maybe, relates to that a little bit, but just in a different way because neither of those guys scored goals, really.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really even help assist goals, but they were just there for the build-up and for the building out of the back. And that's one thing which you saw firsthand against Inter Miami that we couldn't do. There was no one comfortable able to receive the ball, build out from the back, find the next pass. We don't have that type of player anymore. Yeah, a 36-year-old Nicolas Ladero might be able to fill in that gap, but we were promised all offseason that we'd get a DP10, and we haven't, and we're bad. And I'm not surprised. We let go of our best players, and we're bad. Who's surprised? I mean, Hector Herrera and Coco Carrasquilla were the main reasons we were able to have that possession style of soccer that we were so good at since Ben Olsen came. So since they're gone, I really can't tell you how we're going to play. I haven't seen enough of this new team to tell you what we're going to try to do. But we've tried to build out of the back, and it hasn't worked. And you saw that against Inter Miami firsthand.
Yeah. What is one key to the game that the Dynamo can kind of work on to secure 3 points?
Honestly, 3 points is a mystery right now. I mean, it would take multiple key points for me to see a reality where we secure 3 points. I guess one thing maybe, I mean, if you want one thing, I guess scoring goals. I mean, we've scored 2 goals all season. How many goals has Columbus scored?
5.
5? Well, we've given up 6 goals this season in 2 games. So, I mean, we're on 2 different sides of the spectrum here. I'll be honest. I mean, honestly, we need to score goals. That's one key point. I mean, I know that's kind of broad, but that's where we're at. I mean, I don't see a reality where we win. I don't see a reality where we take 3 points. It would take a lot.
Any injuries that Columbus should be aware about?
Well, Sviatchenko had to come out at halftime for the Dynamo, so I would, at the very least, expect him not to be 90 minutes fit. He's our starting center back. He might start. I'm not really sure. I haven't heard anything, but even if he does start, I wouldn't expect him to play the full game. And Sebastian Kowalczyk has been our starting midfielder. Nothing's been said yet, but he did a very dirty, nasty stomp on Jordi Alba in the Inter Miami
Yeah.
game. And honestly, I'm very surprised he has not received a 2-game ban yet. And that's just poor refereeing at its finest. Like, it was a disgusting stomp on his foot. Like, very, very, what's the word? Like, purposeful. Like, he did it very intently. It's so late that after it's happened that it probably won't happen, but you might see something happen there where he gets a 2-game ban or something, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's just bad refereeing. So the only one I would think would be Sviatchenko may not be match fit.
Okay. Last but not least, what's your final score prediction?
Like 3-0 Columbus, maybe.
That's nice of you. Holy crap.
I would say
Oh
like
my God.
3-1, 3-0. I mean, we're gonna have a starting center back that got undrafted in the draft start for us. So take that with what you will on how you think this might go. I think it'll be like 3-1, maybe 2-1 if I'm being generous, but we're gonna lose. Trust me when I say we're gonna lose. Like, I know how this game goes every day of the week. Now, what's your score prediction?
To be honest, I didn't watch the LAFC match, but I heard it was very bad. I feel like it's probably gonna be like that 2-1. We'll give up a howler of a goal or some fluky goal. But I think we'll play just about the same that we played against Chicago and against New England, where we start off slow and don't look good, but then we'll pick it up as the game gets going, start to settle in the match a little bit, start to dictate how the tempo is going to be played, because we play from back to front and then side to side pretty much, right? So
we play the same way, or we used to, with Hector and Kovacic.
yeah. But I mean, for example, against Chicago was very rough. His first game without Cujo, without Christian, so people were trying to figure out spaces that they need to take when players make runs and etc. New England was kind of a rough one. Also, we didn't score until the second half, but we looked okay. So I think it's going to be something like that. But I'm probably going to go 2-1, 2-1 Columbus.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair prediction. I mean, playing at home, like you said, like creating the fortress that y'all have at y'all stadium. I mean, and plus going up north is always tough for a southern team. Dealing with that altitude, dealing with the colder weather. I mean, I see no reason why it shouldn't be a Columbus win.
Yeah. Ironically enough, our pitch is under street level, so that's very, very, very odd of how they did that, but hey, it works. Colin, where can the fine people of the Wise Men Say podcast find you on social media?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. I mean, X, I guess, if you want to call it like that. I still call it Twitter. But
Same.
find me on X at Keeping Tabs Pod. You can find me on Spotify on Keeping Tabs Podcast. And our link to our Spotify is also in our description on X. You can find me on Instagram at Keeping Tabs Pod, and also on YouTube, Keeping Tabs Pod. Very easy.
Colin, thank you so much for doing this. Apologies, it's so late. We just want to get something done this week because one of our co-hosts is wedding planning, the other one's in Vegas. But thank you so much for doing this for me. Thank you all for tuning in to the Wise Men Say podcast. This is a game preview with Colin from Keeping Tabs. If you guys have watched to the end on YouTube, you guys can hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notifications to get post notifications on when we go live. When we upload new content, you guys can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, Pocket Cast, Overcast. You guys can watch us on YouTube, Spotify, and Goals TV. Follow us on social media at the Wiseman Say Podcast on Instagram and YouTube, at Wiseman Pod on Twitter. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Fisher Tyler __. Ashley, there she goes. Wiseman say, only fools rush in. Peace out, everybody. Have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay hydrated, stay cool. Hug your loved ones. Go Crew.